The board will now come to order.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman True, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Triplett, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderman Wessels, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Florida, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Schmid, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, President Reed.
Here.
Alderman Troop, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Triplett, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Carter, 22 present.
Quorum being present, we will be led today in prayer by Dr. Reverend Douglas Petty. Reverend Petty.
Amen. To the Most High God, we come to thank you, first of all, for this chance for all of us to be here, and ask that those who are under the sound of my voice who have chosen to be servants will be pricked in their thinking to remember that it's not about any of them as individuals, but it's about the people who have labored, who have voted, who make up this wonderful St. Louis city. That you would give them wisdom to be able to understand how to respond to the challenges that are against us in this community. But that also an attitude of selflessness where they would realize the importance of working close together to be able to become more proficient, more sound, and more of an asset to all of us. Strengthen their bodies, strengthen them physically, that if there are anything that might distract them in that way, and allow their thoughts to be ordered aright, that their thinking is keen, and that there are not any distractions that will keep them from being able to attend to every detail here today. And that there is support for each other so that this is a time of celebration for this time on your timetable that we're allowed to be a part of. And for the president of this board, that you would continue to direct him and to just give him creative ability to coordinate, respond, and to lead. And we want to thank you in advance for what you're going to do today that will have lasting impact. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Suspending our regular order of business, take up our courtesy resolution calendar. I move for adoption of a courtesy resolution calendar and take a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 20th. Alderman from the 20th, would like to approach the dais.
Are they coming up?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Should we have him? He's right, sitting there. Peter? Yeah. Should we start with the reading? Start with the reading? She can read it? Oh, okay. All right.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. Good morning, young men and women. We're all excited that you're here, and we know that you are all proud products of St. Louis Public Schools and the city of St. Louis, as I am. I have 2 children as well in St. Louis Public Schools. And as you look behind me this morning, ladies and gentlemen, these are young men and women, and often in our society we blame young men and women for the failures of our society, and we are not doing that today. In fact, we are recognizing them because they have been recognized by other adults in their lives as people who are not giving the minimum, as people who have leadership potential. And also at this time, I would ask them if they feel that it is appropriate that by a round of applause, we give thanks to their parents and the helpful adults in their lives who are recognizing them and are giving them so much that they are here today. They are all part of the community education program in St. Louis Public Schools, and of course, as we know, they are always in need of resources, helpful resources. Also, there are adults, even though we are seeing today in many instances in our colleges, some adults that may have strayed, they are having many helpful adults who are showing them their way. I remember back to my high school years, and Alderman Ortman, I know that you remember this as a fellow Dutchman at Cleveland High School. One of the things that we had on our insignia on the front of our podium at all times was courtesy, loyalty, honesty, and industry. It was a number of years ago, and I still remember those. Part of what you are doing is striving for excellence. You are learning, and however, you're also willing, I hope, to take some reasonable risks. You know, Albert Pujols, if he goes to the plate, 2 out of 3 times he misses. And for some people, they would view that as failure. He will undoubtedly be recognized as going into the Hall of Fame because 1 out of those 3 times he hits and he makes it. And we hope that you are not averse to reasonable failure. Failures you remember. I was sharing with my older daughter the other day something, and she couldn't believe that I still remembered this, that I believe it was in 6th grade, that on a constitutional question, U.S. constitutional question, I did not know what lower and upper house was. That was the one question that I got wrong. Do I remember any of the other questions? Of course not. But we all learn from those mistakes. So any of the mistakes that you are making, if they are reasonable, well thought out, are good to look at. And you are also looking at things that are bigger than yourselves. It's not all about us. It's about everyone else who's surrounding us. The danger sometimes is to mistake confidence, which I hope you all have a confidence, I know you do, because you've been recognized for that confidence of leadership, that you are being well prepared, that you are preparing yourselves. So confidence is great, but being egotistical or selfish can be sometimes mistaken for that. What you are doing is giving back to your neighborhoods, giving back to your schools, giving back to your families. So it is with great joy that we are here to present to you this resolution today. I know that you also probably, Dr. Wyndham, is Dr. Wyndham here to present? If you would have a few words, Dr. Wyndham, to talk about these great people and the great programs that you have in St. Louis Public Schools.
Thank you, Alderman Schmidt. Good morning, and thank you for the privilege of speaking with you briefly this morning. Several things. One, the young people behind me are a manifestation of the work that we do in community education, reflecting the partnership that has existed for 44 years between the city of St. Louis and the St. Louis Public Schools. Secondly, these young people, their parents, and the residents who live in the communities from which they come are our common constituents. So it makes sense for us to continue a strong partnership in providing the buoyancy that they need to be successful, as well as strengthening the ability of their parents and their neighbors to support them and enhance their quality of life and community. And lastly, in these very chambers in which I happen to be some 44 years ago, when your predecessors made the decision to embrace one another, the other being the St. Louis Public Schools, and providing this support through partnership, was a good idea then, a better idea now. In this environment of shrinking resources, it makes sense to use public facilities, the schools, as bases of operations for service providers and communities to have a point of service delivery, known as full service schools. We ask for your continued support. We ask for a continued strong partnership, and we trust that the future will cause us to be together, although I may not be here 44 years from today. Once again, thank you for your time.
Also like to just join in and thanking Mr. Wyndham and other members, Curtis Royston, and some other members of the staff and volunteers that make this program possible. It is a phenomenal program. It's a true asset to the city of St. Louis. Also to the young men and women, I really thank you for stepping up and being leaders, and as it says on your shirts, student ambassadors. And you know, we really thank you for being the leaders within you know, your student body and working to make St. Louis a better place and helping to keep people on the right path. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderwoman Howard? She's a former principal, so you better listen.
I would like to. I didn't get over there to speak to the young people, but I was interested in, just ran out of time this morning. But I would like to tell them, recognize some faces up there. I would like to tell them that as they move forward and their leadership grows, that to consider public service as part of your way to give back to all that has been given to you. Also, I would like to thank Patrice Crotty for all the work she does in the 14th Ward with the community schools, and has initiated several things to better the community in the 14th Ward and around the area of Bevo. And thank you, those of you that live in the 14th Ward, I hope you know who you are, for coming today, and all the other children that are here today as student ambassadors. Thank you so much, and I wish you the best in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Alderman from 12th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I just want to say I thoroughly enjoyed talking with the students this morning. You can tell they are going to be leaders by the questions they ask. They are very much up on what happens in the city and state level. Again, I hope I answered some of your questions for you. That helps. And I wish you much success in your future endeavors.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, you guys want to line up for the, let she have something. We have to recognize Joe Teresi for all the work that he does. And Joe, you guys know Joe. Joe's a modest man. He works so hard within the community with these kids. He rides on bicycles with them to Jeff City every year. He is amazing, and he is a true asset to the city of St. Louis. He does not want to talk, even though we keep pushing him to the mic. But give us another round of applause for Joe.
Thank you. I appreciate your support, and it's a wonderful opportunity to work with our future leaders. And I've loved every minute of my 27 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Alderwoman from the 19th, like to approach the dais. Oh, there you go. Hey, Rob.
Good morning. President Reed, members of the board, guests. It gives me great honor to stand here and present this resolution to not only a man of God, but to a friend and a great citizen to the city of St. Louis. As the young people exited, I thought about how I first met Dr. Petty. Dr. Petty has been around education and had much concern about it for many years. It was one of those times when I had disagreement with something that he had said. But I also knew that I better go back and do my homework before I approached him with my concern. Because he's a quiet storm. The wind, bustling wind this morning reminded me of him. Because the wind moves in every direction and you don't know when or where, and you don't know what is going to rise up behind that force of wind, but you know it's there, and you know you can't do anything to control it. Well, that's the quiet Dr. Petty. He makes sure that what he says is factual. He makes sure that when he is committed forever. He brings God with him everywhere he goes. And he's a man with a soul, and not just a soul that was provided because he is a child of God, but he's a soulful man because he likes that soulful music. And he can perform it as well. So, you know, if you ever have an opportunity to see his band play or hear him sing, it is quite remarkable. He's got it going on. But this resolution is to encompass all of that. He is celebrating his 30 years as a minister and a pastor, and he does all that extremely well. His church is located in the 19th Ward. It's the Fresh Start Bible Church. It's on Finney, right at Grand Avenue. He has had much insight to the needs of that community and makes sure that his congregation is a part of it. We've had opportunities to have the block parties with the hot dogs and the clowns and everything for the kids, and his congregation is always up front, volunteering the time, there to the end to help with the cleanups. He's been a part and made sure that they were a part of our health disparity studies, all kinds of things that we've done on behalf of youth and family. So his 30 years have been very encompassing, and to look at him, it's kind of hard to believe that it's been 30 years, but it has. But I'd like to read the resolution in its entirety to make sure that he gets all his due very quickly for you. Whereas this year marks the 30th year in ministry for Pastor Douglas Petty, PhD. Dr. Petty answered God's call to the ministry in 1981 and has dedicated his life to serving God's people. And whereas he was ordained to public ministry in 1982 at the historic Sardis Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. He is the organizing pastor of Fresh Start Bible Church in St. Louis, Missouri, a biblically based spiritual growth center whose goal is making disciples for Christ in order to heal the lives of broken, hurting humanity. And whereas Dr. Petty has over 30 years experience as a church consultant, organizational consultant, educator, community organizer, personal coach, and motivational speaker. Dr. Petty is a member of several professional organizations, including the American Counseling Association, American Association of Christian Counselors, and the American Psychological Association. And whereas he serves on several boards, including the Alzheimer's Association of Metropolitan St. Louis, President of the Fred Shuttlesworth Foundation Board, President of the Ethics Project Board, and the African American Advisory Board. Washington University School of Medicine Memory and Aging Project. Whereas Dr. Petty is the author of 2 books that are soon to be released, the autobiography of Fred Shuttlesworth, and for those of you who don't know, that's a book that you should read. A civil rights icon, and Fred was definitely that, and Petty quotes on leadership in life. And believe me, he has some very significant quotes, so you also want to read that book. Whereas Dr. Petty's educational background includes an AA in physical education from Lawson Community College, a BA in psychology from Tagliatelle, MA in psychology from Washington University, and a PhD in Christian counseling from Christian Bible College. Now, therefore, let it be resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that Dr. Petty, we take this moment to recognize you and provide you with this resolution from the City of St. Louis, and it's my honor to give it to you. Thank you.
You are surprised me again. You are surprised me.
I knew you wouldn't have done it if you had to.
You are surprised. Thank you all. I am honored. I just found this out right now, but I am honored to be just a servant, to be able to help out in any way that I possibly can, and hopefully at some point to be an asset for you as a Board of Aldermen. And you will probably hear something about that soon. Thank you.
Also, Dr. Petty, you know, for all the years I've known you, the thing that surprised me the most when I walked into a place and saw you on stage performing, you are truly talented, and he is very good. I see Judge Carnahan is with us today, and I know the kind of music you like. You would really enjoy hearing his band. But Reverend Petty, what we say is that this resolution is the highest honor that this board has to give anyone. And what it does is that it cements in time some of your many contributions throughout our community, and some of your life's work up until today. It will be in the permanent archives of this city throughout time. So people 100, 200, 300 years from now, when they research the city of St. Louis in their archives, they'll find your name enshrined amongst the names within those records. So I am indeed honored today to share this dais with you and to have been part of this today. And I have to thank Alderwoman Marlene Davis for getting this done today. She is very insightful. So let's give them one more round of applause. Moved and seconded that we adopt our courtesy resolution calendar. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Introduction of honored guests. Any introduction of honored guests? Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to have for my honored guest today, Ronnie Auer, former state rep and committeeman of the 9th Ward.
Alderman from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I would like to have as my guest today Steve Spreck with Communication Workers, Dick Kellett, Don Summers, and David Holmes with the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters.
Alderman from the 22nd.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to have as my honored guest my esteemed committee man, Andre Williams.
Alderman from 26.
I'd like to have as my honored guest.
26.
26.
Yeah.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. My honored guest today will be the former comptroller and a resident of the 26th Ward, Mr. Purvis Jones. Thank you.
Alderman from the 23rd.
I was just anxious before.
Yeah.
I'm always just so happy to introduce Celeste. I have to jump ahead. So, as my honored guest from the Realtor, Celeste Reeder, and from the Firefighters, Local 73, Demetrius Allen.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 14th.
I would like to have as my esteemed guest Robin Boyce from the Comptroller's Office, along with Katrina Becker from Focus St. Louis Choral Foundation. She's serving in the Comptroller's Office, and Tom Topping, a choral fellow serving in the St. Louis Development Corporation.
All one for the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to recognize the Ameren UE family that's here representing the corporation, and also give them a bit of recognition. They're one of the largest corporate givers in the city of St. Louis, not only with money, but with volunteer services from their employees.
We also have with us former judge and friend of all of ours, the wife of Congressman Carnahan, but more importantly, Deborah Carnahan. Deborah, could you stand and be recognized? And a friend of mine. Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from the 10th, wrap this up.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, my regular guest, Mr. Stephan, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, is home preparing his bird. He won't be here. Thank you.
Let's still get him around. Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move to approve the minutes of the November 4th meeting.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 12th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in sections A, B, and C of the agenda and have been placed in all aldermen's mailboxes.
We'll dispense with line item 7. Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? Alderman from the 17th, you're recognized.
Mr. President, I think I have one on there. I'm not really sure which
one.
Whatever one it is, will you go ahead and take it off for me?
All right. Board Bill 190. Please proceed, Alderman.
Mr. President, I move for perfection of Board Bill 190.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 17th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th. Alderman from the 17th, please proceed.
Mr. President, I believe there should have been passed out a floor substitute for Board Bill 190, and it should be sitting on everyone's desk today as I speak. And at this point, I'd like to move that we go, bring up before us the floor substitute for Board Bill 190.
Moved by the Alderman from the 17th, seconded by the Alderman from the 20th. Any discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we introduce floor substitute for Board Bill 190. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Alderman from the 17th, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I begin, I'd like to recognize Peter Sarcino and Leslie Hopeful. I'm sorry, I need to make my motion. I move that we perfect floor substitute.
Moved by the Alderman from the 17th, seconded by the Alderman from the 10th. Alderman from the 17th, please proceed.
But before I begin on the bill, I'd like to recognize Peter Sarcino and Leslie Hopeful for their work on this. Both of them have been very dedicated to Forest Park for a number of years. Peter was instrumental not only in this legislation, but also in 2000 in the passage of the Metro Parks tax. And I've always found Peter to be a remarkable individual who's interested in some really great and has done some remarkable civic things here for the city. With that, last week I prematurely declared it a great day for the city of St. Louis, and we slowed down the bill deliberately last week because there was some questions raised, and while I think we had the votes to perfect it last week, I really wanted to make this something that we all felt good about, and we didn't want to go ahead and begin rushing something to judgment. I told you at the time this wasn't a bill that I was involved in at the early stages. I was handed this by the president just a couple months ago. My ward has virtually no benefit from this at all. I have less than $100,000 out of these bond proceeds that will be going to my ward. It's just that when they approached me with the idea of getting $130 million set up for Forest Park, it was something that I thought was so appealing and so compelling that it was something that I wanted to be involved in. Last week we went over all the numbers, and none of that's going to change in any of the floor substitute. I want to go ahead and confirm that. This is This is a great day for the city of St. Louis. Last week I told you, and I'll tell you again, this is a capstone of a 25-year effort to fix Forest Park. That 25 years started in a living room, and we as a city complain about the lack of civic leadership, and this is a remarkable display of civic leadership, how people who want to get involved in something do it and make a huge difference. This started in somebody's living room 25 years ago in 1986. It began growing slowly at first, but by 1995, with the election of former Mayor Bosley, Forest Park became a front page issue, and it was his leadership that called together a group of civic leaders to begin taking a look at Forest Park. And that process went on for a long period of time. It was also under his leadership that we passed the half-cent sales tax, which has provided so much funds to be spent not only in Forest Park, but some of the other parks throughout the area. And that effort started in 1995. 2000, we got another boost with the leadership of Peter Sartino in 2004. We passed the Metro sales tax for our region, and that then became another predictable stream of income. In 2007, we did the BJC lease, and again, we were able to increase the revenue stream going to support Forest Park by another couple $1 million. And now we're in 2011, 25 years after the effort started, and we are quickly approaching the beginning of the end as we go ahead and issue this bond issue that will in turn kick off a $130 million fundraising drive. I said last week, and I stand by this, this is one of those few days when we're down here where we really make a difference. This is a day that I think years from now, you'll be able to tell your children and grandchildren about how you participated in the effort and cast a vote that made Forest Park forever a beautiful place. What we did, one of the things that I guess kind of confuses me about this, and I kind of think about the process this bill came, that went on with this bill. It actually started well before my involvement in it, over a year and a half ago. And I think about how somebody's wanting to give us $4 million a year, and we struggle with accepting this gift. And I just compare that to the fact, or to what happens if somebody was going to bring a business to our city, and that business was going to generate $4 million a year, how we might react differently. And if someone knocked on one of our doors, like Forest Park Forever did to the comptroller a year and a half ago, and said, I want to move a business into your ward and it's going to generate $4 million for the city, I don't think that I would have just said no and told them to go away. I think what I would have done is listen to what they had to say. If it wasn't exactly what I wanted, I might have negotiated a little bit with them, and I would have really worked very hard and very diligently trying to figure out a way to get that $4 million to be spent in the city. We do that all the time. We spend millions of dollars, but we spend it before we collect it to attract those businesses in town. If a new business came to town, how unusual is it for us to say, oh, we'll give you tax abatement, we'll do a TIF, we'll do anything to go ahead and get that stream of income that will come at some later date. In this case, we are asking, someone is asking to give us $130 million, and all they're asking for from us is that we go ahead and take care of the gift that they're giving us by continuing to spend the $2 million a year. When you look at what Forest Park Forever has done for the city of St. Louis with what they've done and what they propose to do, it is the equivalent of building a stadium downtown or a convention center for us. It's going to be $250 million. And it's like they turned over a brand new convention center and asked us to go ahead and keep the electricity on and pave the street in front of it. And we're sitting here wrenching our hands about whether or not this is a good deal for the city. So last week we listened. It provided us the opportunity to meet with the comptroller on Monday. It was the first time the comptroller sat down with representatives of Forest Park Forever. We had a fairly lengthy discussion. Not all of the issues were resolved, far from it. But important revisions to the bill were made that reflected some of the comments that you made last week, members of this board. Perhaps the most important comment that we wanted to go ahead and make and really deliver the message that how special this gift was and what the true intent of this was a gift, was any collateral that we are going to put up for the bond issue has been removed. So kind of in layman's terms, what that says was people last week raised the issue of, gosh, you know, why are we going ahead and posting Forest Park as collateral? If we don't make a payment, will we lose Forest Park? Well, folks, you know, just, you know, we thought it was a red herring issue, but just, you know, to make sure that this was really clear, that language is completely pulled out of the bond, this legislation. So Forest Park, you know, even if we fail to make a bond, you know, one of the payments, Forest Park isn't going to go to Forest Park Forever or anyone else. It's not posted as collateral. There is anybody who would buy these bonds is crazy, but if it was a regular business transaction, but in this case, the buyer of the bonds is doing this for the city of St. Louis, and the interest payment is their way of assuring that the money will be spent in the park. They're going to turn that back over to us, and that will be spent inside the park. So that's the most important provision that is in the new board bill in front of you. The second important provision is the comptroller was concerned about who was going to pay for the cost of the Forest Park bonds. Forest Park bonds, the cost of issuing those will be borne by Forest Park Forever. The other bonds, the cost for issuing those will be borne by the bond issue itself, or indirectly the taxpayers of St. Louis. And those are, I think, the two biggest concerns that we were able to address. I just want to point out that this effort has been going on for over a year and a half, and there's a certain amount of urgency to all of this. It wasn't my place to announce it, but I think it's been clearly demonstrated in the press that there is several pending gifts that are intended to be made before the year end. And one of them is for over $25 million. I have not been told who that is. I have a pretty good idea who it might be. But they intend to be able to collect over $40 million before the year end. Now, why is that kind of important for us to be moving this now? Well, we have just several weeks left before the year, and what drives so many of those gifts is the tax laws. And whether you're a foundation, which are required to go ahead and spend a certain amount of their corpus each year, 4 or 5%, I think, they have to do that before the year end, and if they don't do it, they get penalized by the Federal Reserve, by the IRS. Likewise, if you're an individual, for a whole bunch of different reasons, bunch of different possibilities for tax purposes, if you don't make that gift by the end of the year, you lose the opportunity of making that gift, and that gift, in our case, might go to someone else. We have somebody who wants to go ahead and do something civically with a very substantial gift, and we can't wait any longer to go ahead and do this. So at this point, I'd like to just go ahead and make the motion that we
we already have the motion and a second on that. Any further discussion? Any further discussion on the perfection of Board Bill 190? It's been moved and seconded that we perfect the floor substitute for Board Bill 190. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any further bills off the informal calendars? Any further bills off the informal calendar? Alderman from 28th, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move to take Board Bill 189 off the informal calendar.
Please proceed, Alderwoman.
And I also would move to put before us floor substitute for Board Bill 189.
You need to perfect the perfect
the floor substitute for 189.
No, you need to move for perfection of Board Bill 189 first.
Okay, I move to perfect Board Bill 189.
Moved by the Alderman from the 28th, second by the Alderman from the 25th. Alderman from the 28th now move for perfection of the floor substitute, not for the introduction of the floor substitute. Go ahead.
Now I move to introduce the floor substitute for Board Bill 189.
Moved by the Alderman from the 28th, second by the Alderman from the 25th. Alderman, please proceed.
Thank you. Now I move to perfect the floor substitute for Board Bill 189.
No, if you have any discussion on the floor substitute right now, if you don't, then I'll just.
Getting a lot of help here. Thank you very much.
Hold on for a second. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the floor substitute for Board Bill 189. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Now move for the perfection of the floor substitute, and we'll make that discussion.
Mr. President, I move to perfect floor substitute for Board Bill 189.
Moved by the Alderman from the 28th, seconded by the Alderman from the 15th. Alderwoman, please proceed.
Thank you so much. Board Bill 189 is the maintenance agreement for between the City of St. Louis and Forest Park Forever. There's already an existing maintenance agreement that's been in effect since 2007. This board bill expands that maintenance agreement to include the entire park. The way we make decisions currently for the areas that are under maintenance is Forest Park Forever and the Director of Parks sit down each year and decide who's going to do what, who's going to cut the grass, who's going to trim the trees. And this is an expansion of that process to include the entire park. There is one change in the floor substitute from the previous bill. It's in the exhibit, and all it is a clarification that included in this exhibit, there will be a minimum of $500,000 each year that shall be budgeted annually to cover the cost of emergency capital repair and unanticipated capital needs. And that's the only change, and with that, I would.
You're okay. Any further discussion on the floor substitute for Board Bill 189? Alderman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask the alderperson from the 28th Ward to yield for a question.
Alderman from the 28th, will you yield for questions to Alderman from the 19th?
I will.
Alderman from the 19th, please proceed.
Thank you. On page 11, item number 6, entitled Permits, Concessions, and Leases. Am I correct in understanding that we will now relinquish all of that to the Forest Park Forever system, whatever, and instead of our Parks Department?
No, we will not.
Explain this to me.
Okay, the Parks Department, if you want to get a permit in Forest Park right now, you apply to the Parks Department, you get your permit. All this bill does is section does is to provide non-binding input from Forest Park Forever on major special events permits. And this is really just in a way so that we can try to coordinate special events. You know, everybody wants to have their party in Forest Park, or their run in Forest Park, or their balloon race in Forest Park. And this is just more of a collaboration so that Forest Park Forever and the City of St. Louis is working together in order to be sure that we don't issue too many permits on the same day and that sort of thing.
I got a little bit of a concern, and my concern comes from working with the Tower Grove Park on a past occasion, and also hearing some other people's concerns about not being issued a permit for use, and it really wasn't based on anything that had any basis of unlawful or confused dates or multiple dates or anything like that. It seems as though it was some kind of arbitrary decision that was made. And I do know that we have so many events at Forest Park currently that have become traditional, and I would hate to see those leave with this new way of having input. I don't want this to become a quasi-private park. This is a city park. Now, you can put $7 billion in it as far as I'm concerned, but it's still a public park. So that I got a little bit of concern about that, and I don't know if it's required. That's what I want to say. We have a very good system that has worked all these years. I don't know if we need anybody else's input in a city park.
I agree with a lot of what you said. I think what this is we're a team here. City of St. Louis and Forest Park Forever. We're a team. We're a team on maintaining this park. We're a team on raising the funds for this park. And this permit process is just another way to demonstrate that we're going to be a team. Whether or not the permit is issued and under what conditions the permit is issued is ultimately up to the City of St. Louis, period. So this is just input, explaining a process that permits will be issued under, really just like we're a team in terms of coming up with who's going to maintain what and who's going to do what. Maintaining the park, these events are hard on the park, as you know. We all love them, but if you've ever been in the park, the morning after some of these big events, you know that there's a lot of effort required to restore the park ground to the way it was, et cetera. So this is really just writing down how this team is going to operate with each other. Ultimately, it's the city's choice.
This team has been operating since, what, 1994, 5, somewhere around there?
Forest Park Forever started in 1995. Really,
right.
Yeah, so if
we don't have a relationship and an understanding and a trust factor, by now we will never have one. And I'm going to tell you what really concerns me. It says here that the Maintenance Steering Committee shall develop revised or additional permit conditions, including but not limited to bond or insurance requirements for special events. I don't want this park to become a private park where people can't afford to have their events there anymore because of these new conditions. And I'm telling you, that's what this sounds like. And do we need to go there? Do we really need to go there?
Well, I don't see the harm in having your partner look at the permits that are issued also. If you have an event in Forest Park now, you have to have insurance and
we do. Like I
all
said,
those
we
kinds
do
of
it well
things.
already and have been doing it for however many years we've had a parks department. And, we know about public insurance. Per 100 people, you pay for so much, all those things. All those things are in place. They work well. I've not heard of an instance where the park was totally destroyed and it was not taken care of, because that would be in the media immediately. So I just don't want additional restraints, because that becomes private. And this is a public park. I don't care who helps us maintain it. It's a public park.
I hear what you're saying. I think that it's desirable to have this input. They're going to be using their staff to help clean up. And I just don't see any reason not to have this input from them. And like a lot of things in this document, it's just outlining under the terms that we're going to work under with one another.
Do we currently allow them to review all permits?
They get a copy of all of the permits. I know that. I don't know if they review the permits before they're issued. Do they review and have input? Yeah. Yeah, they get a copy of the permit after it's issued. I actually get a copy.
After it's issued, but
I get a copy of all the permits as well. So, and so do all, all the institutions in the park also get copies currently. And I would think that that's going to continue because, it's really trying to coordinate what's happening here in these 1,300 acres. So
we're treading on some real dangerous territory right here. I'm excited about the Forest Park Forever process. I'm grateful for what they have done. But at the end of the day, when you talk about fair and equitable access to a public facility without undue restraints and/or conditions, I'm concerned. Because I know how that could get out of hand.
But if it did, it's still the city's decision. This is just input. The director of parks it makes the decision.
When we make legislation, though, we make it forever. Gary may decide that he's had enough of our nonsense and retire in a year. I know what Gary is about. I know how he operates, and that's wonderful. But when I'm looking at legislation, I'm looking at it for the future. And I can't look at it for just today.
No, I agree. I agree with that. I think that the next Parks Director, you know, after Gary, is also going to have the ultimate decision, and that Parks Director is going to work for the city of St. Louis. Whether it's Gary or whoever it is.
I'm going to think about this for a second. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderman, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take a moment. I'm sure other people have done this before me, but just take a moment to personally thank Forest Park Forever for all the work they've done the last 25 years. Without a doubt, they've really been a godsend to the park and to the city as a whole. Let me tell a short story. I moved to St. Louis in 1999, and Ted Carey-Nicholas, a guy I knew in high school, one of the last things he said to me before I moved to St. Louis was, don't go into the park after dark. Don't go into Forest Park after dark. That was 1999, and today, in 2001, I can happily say that I commute home by bike to the park after dark, multiple times a week. And it is, we've seen a lot of transformations in St. Louis in the last 10 years, but I think none of them has been as dramatic as what we've seen in Forest Park. And there's a lot of credit to go around for that, but a lot of that credit should lie with Forest Park Forever. I have no idea how to raise $128 million for a park, but I'm extremely grateful that somebody knows how to do that, and they stepped up to the plate and got it done. So since I had a chance, I just wanted to thank them publicly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from 28th, you recognize the close.
Thank you. I renew my motion. I would really appreciate your support on this. I think it's a great step forward in maintaining our park to the level that we'd like to have it maintained. So thank you. And I hope the alderman from the 24th, if he's riding his bike in the park after dark, has lights and helmets and all that.
It's already recognized. Alderman from the 19th, I've already recognized the Alderman from the 28th to close, so we can't go any further. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt floor substitute for Board Bill 189. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Would anyone like to take any further bills off of any of our informal calendars? Would anyone like to take any further bills off of any of our informal calendars? We'll dispense with line items 9 and 10, first reading of board bills.
Board Bill 223, sponsored by Alderman Conway, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to submit all necessary applications and to enter into agreement with the Missouri Foundation for Health or any agency for the St. Louis Healthy Corner Store project containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 224, sponsored by Alderman Ogilvie, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service authorizing and directing the execution of a cooperation agreement between the city by and through the Board of Public Service and the Metropolitan Park and Recreation District, doing business as Great Rivers Greenway District, containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. Board Bill 225, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service establishing a public works and improvement project for the design and construction of the traffic management enhancement project involving various traffic management improvements on city arterials and the city's traffic operations center computer systems, containing a public work emergency clause. That's the extent of our first readings.
Reference to committee.
To the Health and Human Services Committee, Board Bill 223, to the Parks Committee, Board Bill 224, and to the Streets Committee, Board Bill 225. That's the extent of reference to committees.
Some order. Second reading.
The following board bill was reported out of the Health and Human Services Committee, Board Bill 199, sponsored by Alderman Conway, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing the mayor to apply for funding under the United States Housing Urban Development Office of Healthy Homes and Lead Hazard Control Program for fiscal year 2001, containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of our second reading.
We'll dispense
2011, I'm sorry. 2011.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk, for that correction. We'll dispense with line items 14 through 16. Third reading consent calendar.
Board Bill 169, 141, 183, 184, 185, and 174.
Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on the third reading consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move for third reading and final passage of the aforementioned bills on the consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. All in favor, signify. Well, sorry. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Troop, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Triplett, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderman Wessels, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Florida, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Schmidt, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, President Reed,
aye.
Alderman Bosley, Alderwoman Triplett, Alderman Conway, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, 24 aye votes.
By vote, you sustain the motion. The Alderman from the 13th and third read and finally passed the aforementioned bills. We will dispense with line item 18, report of enrollment.
Board Bills 169, 141, 183, 184, 185, and 174.
All other business being suspended, the President shall in open session affix his signature hereto to the end that these may become law. Dispense with line items 21 and 22, miscellaneous unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements.
Monday, Ways and Means Committee meeting 10 a.m. in the Leisure Room. Thursday, the office will be closed due to the Thanksgiving holiday. Friday, the office is closed due to the Thanksgiving holiday. That's the extent of my announcements.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from 27th, you have an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tomorrow, the 19th, 27th Ward has its monthly meeting at 10 a.m. at 5939 Goodfellow, which is Bishop Willie Ellis Conference Center. And also, as a reminder, for those residents in the 27th and 2nd Wards, You still have an opportunity to call the Riverview Development Housing Corporation on our Builder Bag, which is 3829000. Last year, we gave away, I think, 3,200 baskets, and we're looking to make that 4,000 mark. So again, give them a call if you want that basket the week before Christmas, 3829000. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on motion to excuse. Alderman from 13th, you recognize on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to excuse the Alderwoman from the 6th Ward due to necessary absence.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 12th. We're on the 11th. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adjourn the meeting until Friday, 10 a.m., December 2nd.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 27th. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.